Hey, before I tell you about our coaching groups, did you know that you can listen to this episode without interruption from these ads? By becoming a patron over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon, for just $5 a month, you can get the same episode with ads at the very end. And I want to thank Carrie and Zuza D for recently becoming patrons. Learn all about our perks at the website, including a monthly coaching call for just $25 a month. Thank you so much for your support. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. We are just 4 weeks away from the start of our summer coaching and accountability groups. Join us for our next registration event on Wednesday, June 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern, or check the website if that day has passed. Go to coachingrewired.com. Do it now. It's coachingrewired.com. Okay, now on with the show. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. We are here recording our live monthly Q&A in the month of May. So happy May, everybody. And if you're listening to this now on the podcast, hope it was a good May and you're having a great June. Let me introduce today's panel of panelists. Today we have, starting in my left corner, Coach Kristen Martz. Hello, Kristen.
Hello, everybody.
And we have a Coach Brian Entler. Hello, Brian.
Good morning, Eric and all.
And we have Lisa Ciesla. How's it going, Lisa?
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday.
And we are excited to welcome Laura as a kind of guest panelist who's been a just wonderful new addition to the ADHD Rewire team. Hi, Laura.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here.
I am very glad that you are here as well. Did you splurge on the new mic, or did you go with what you currently had?
I splurged on the new mic.
You're looking for that excuse to make that purchase. I'm going to just say, I guess you're welcome, and it sounds great.
Fantastic.
All right, Tom.
I was diagnosed about last week with ADHD. I have a medication appointment soon. I'm rather nervous about taking amphetamine for the rest of my life. Can anyone allay my fears?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's maybe not what you want to hear, but congratulations on the diagnosis. It truly is. It's a good news diagnosis because there's so much we can do to better our lives once we understand what's been getting in the way. So there's unfortunately so much misinformation out there on medication around ADHD. And when you compare it to how much just really good science-based information is out there, there's a lot of reason to have hope. I have been personally on stimulant medications since I was 19 years old. I am 42. I'll let you do the math. And I'm telling you, like, what we're doing right here, right now, like, this was no way in hell this would be happening if I didn't have medication. My bigger fear is, like, not being able to get my medication for as long as I need it, right? If we look at sort of the longitudinal studies that look also at medication and what are the risks of not treating ADHD, I mean, this is not hyperbole. You have a higher risk of early death by not treating ADHD. Yeah. So really looking at, all right, like, and one of the best things I think about ADHD stimulants is that they are actually really ADHD friendly, because it's not like the antidepressants where you have to, wait a couple weeks to be able to determine, is this helping me or not? You kind of know really quickly whether or not it's effective. Brian?
And Eric, I just want to jump in to have you clarify what you just said, though. And I'm sorry, Brian, but I didn't want anyone to walk away going, oh, ADHD causes death. So if you could give some clarity around that.
So Russell Barkley, who was a leading kind of authority on ADHD a couple of years ago, put out a paper and did a keynote presentation on how ADHD actually impacts the longevity, like life expectancy. And part of his reason for disseminating this information was to combat this absurdity that even people in the medical community don't take ADHD as serious as it is, right? Like, it is a treatable, manageable disorder. But if people are burying their head in the sand and not actually addressing this disorder, it has serious implications. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's such a depressing thing. It's like, but you don't need to be a statistic, right? The idea is, like, let's personalize this for ourselves. All right. And one of the key variables, and I talked to Russell Barkley about a year or two ago on the podcast specifically about this factor. And it was about the conscientiousness piece. Now, as a whole, people with ADHD sort of by default are known to have lower levels of sort of conscientiousness. it's that combination of sort of self-awareness, understanding our tendencies, and then maybe doing things that really support what we want to be doing in our longer term goals, which is a skill that we can absolutely obtain and get better at doing. So to me, it's really good news to understand that piece to it.
Okay.
But the idea that everyone's like, oh, I just want to do the natural approach. These medications are dangerous. So I don't, I'm worried about addiction. Like all these things, if you're worried about addiction, medication helps. It's just shown, it's been proven to people who have a history of addiction, taking the stimulant medications can help. Mary actually in the chat just put points to higher rates of car accidents, avoiding doctor's appointments, all kinds of reasons, like just risk taking, right? So there are lots and lots of reasons why that is. So start low, go up incrementally higher as you're trying the medication. The sort of best practice prescribing protocol, which I also know a lot of people don't actually do because a lot of doctors are afraid to prescribe, or they're afraid that they're going to prescribe too high of a dose. But what is really recommended is you actually intentionally try to hit the ceiling of discover what is actually too much and then come back down.
Okay.
Right. Brian, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to offer a different perspective to Eric's. Eric said, you mentioned that you had been medicated from a very young age. I did not engage with medication until about 2 years ago-ish. And that was because early in our life, I had been prescribed a whole bunch of antidepressants that I didn't really need or weren't really effective for me, like many ADHD people. And I was kind of done with the pharmaceuticals and I kind of swore off them for years. And I've come around. I was able to get around that, my aversion to taking medications now that I actually see the benefit from them. So I just wanted to offer that as a different perspective, someone who came to it later than Eric did.
Yeah, and I would say for anyone that's sort of new to trying medication, don't give up after the first one if you're not having a good response to the first one, right? Like if you find that you're feeling really highly agitated, especially as the meds are wearing off, that is a known side effect, especially to the short-acting stimulants, and is one that we really should not be tolerating. Like if you're getting really angsty and irritable as you're coming off the medication, talk to your doctor about that because there may be better options for you.
Right. Okay.
Laura, go
Fantastic.
ahead. You bet.
I agree with what everybody said so far. I also think it's really important to realize that medication is not always a magic bullet. And we like to say that pills don't teach skills. And so if you're not suddenly cured after you start taking your stimulant medication or your non-stimulant, don't be surprised. Don't think it's not working. We all here have to work really hard to get better at the things we want to improve at. And that's why ARC, the coaching groups here exist. And it's why the podcast exists. We want people to find those skills and use the medication to enhance those skills.
Thanks, Laura. Tom, is that helpful for you?
Yeah, it really is. I had a tripartite diagnosis of, bizarrely, of major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety. And I thought, oh my goodness, how are they going to prescribe me for all three? And I thought, are they going to contradict it? The psychiatrist basically said, no, you deal with the ADHD first, because it might be causing those other things anyway. So.
All right. Well, thank you for your question and good luck. And you're on the beginning of this journey. So
thanks everyone.
I think it's fantastic that you are here because community is such an important part of the ADHD experience, and really be able to thrive with it. Don't struggle alone, right? I can't encourage you enough to not struggle alone. So kudos. All right. Let's look at other questions. Let's see, we got Patrick. I'm going to try to read through this one. When you're trying to be open with your job or others about your ADHD, how would you handle your response? 2 people said the same thing. I'm a mortgage loan officer. I left my old bank because their structure didn't work for me. They said, you have to have a little ADHD to be in this profession. It feels as if they dismissed what I said and not consider the pros and cons of ADHD, nor why I brought it up. I know it wasn't malicious. Okay.
I have a thought around this. One of them is, if you recall Eric saying earlier, we even still have people in the clinical profession that they are not really knowledgeable about what ADHD really is, what it looks like for adults as compared to children, how there's different presentations of it. And my gut feeling around this is that they have a perceived notion of what it is. And because they said little to no ADHD to do this job, they apparently don't have it. So I'm thinking an education piece would be appropriate here. And that's, I think, a lot of the fear of revealing at work is that lack of understanding. And it's not because people just don't know, it's because we keep growing. We keep growing in this knowledge and information.
Yeah, and over the last year, I would say the topic of ADHD in the workplace has been really evolving. I think pleasantly rapid rate. I mean, it was not that long ago that I would like highly discourage people from disclosing in the workplace. I still say like definitely proceed with caution because we don't know what somebody else's understanding of ADHD is. Right. So when we say we have ADHD, like whatever their story is about ADHD, that's what's going to be connected to their sort of presumptions. I always think it's best, especially with your if a boss, your supervisor, to say, here's how I can be most successful. Like, can I get a quiet workroom for a while while I'm working on this thing? Can I, instead of this big project that I'm just going to check in with you in 3 months on, what if we have weekly check-ins just so I can show you my progress? You know, it's how do we do the things that are going to help us help the business be successful? Right? Because that's why we're getting paid is to support the business's mission. So as long as we can, figure out ways to verbalize that, so we have the support that we need, because we do have to do the work that is entitled in the job. Brian?
Well, I just wanted to point out the really great part about this question. This jumped out at me. I left my old bank because their structure didn't work for me. Part of your answer might lie right there, the great self-awareness right there. But if this structure is not working for you because there isn't awareness around the ADHD, changing your environment might be the best response.
And it looks like Patrick's, but he's available, I think, in the to join us.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Kristen?
Yeah, I wanted to offer another thought, maybe a curious way of trying to gain more information for yourself. You know, Eric suggested the idea, and this really aligns with me too, having been a school-based clinical therapist, is that we used to walk into IEP meetings and they would want to help if you educated them, but they still didn't know what to do. And so it's that the expert is you, yet you still might have things that you don't know about what you need. And so it might involve some experimentation. My curiosity would be within your social networks. It sounds like you might be open about your ADHD, reaching out on a Facebook page and going, "Hey, I work in the banking system and I have ADHD and I am struggling. Do any of you have that? Could we talk?" Because maybe they're, a few steps ahead of you and have figured out some of these things. It's kind of like network interviewing, I guess, is what
I
you
mean, that
call it.
makes sense because I got a massage the other day and I told my massage therapist about it. And she said, "Oh, I actually have ADHD too. As a matter of fact, I put little markers on you that you don't know about." And then I sent her the link to your podcast. So we have that connection too.
Yep, I do that all the time. It's connection is my biggest core value, and everywhere I go, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even turn in my key for the hotel room. I'm checking out." You'd think my ADHD is showing or something like that, and they go, "Oh, I have it too." And then there's like an hour-long conversation. And I learn so much from other people, even who aren't in the same field of work that I'm in. So that was what came to my mind, is reaching out and finding people who have, even in your line of work, or something similar.
Well, here's the
And you
thing
can
about
learn
the
from
banking
it.
structure, the way that I do it. So it's just like I am based off of commission. So it's one of those things where I'm an employee, but I'm also kind of like a team lead. And the reason why I left my previous bank is because we changed to another bank as a team. It just did not work for me. I couldn't get anything done. We didn't have the systems that I need in place. All the tools that I needed disappeared. So I just woke up one day and just like, I'm leaving. I told my psychologist, she was just like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Did you think this out for a second?" And I explained to her why I needed what I needed. And then I ended up going to a new bank. I actually now start my own team. So I'm a senior loan officer with a team lead. And now I have assistants, I have the software that I need, but also too, because I have various different people that I work with, I kind of tell them about it and say, "Hey, this is what I need. This is how I work. This is how you can help me out." And because I'm actually running things a little bit more, and rather than being on somebody's team and running my team, it makes things so much seamless. And I feel like I've done more in 1 week than I did all of last year.
That's awesome. Patrick, I think that Brian so astutely pointed this out. But you are ADHD like a boss. Like the level of self-awareness, the advocacy, and knowing what you need to put in place and doing it, like that's amazing. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you very much. I actually forgot I had ADHD. I know you talk about this all the time. I was watching videos and things like that on Facebook and Instagram and IG, and I was just like, wait a minute, these people sound just like me. Huh, I guess I'm not weird. And then I started thinking, and then I forgot that I used to take Strattera growing up, and I'm just like, what was this Strattera for? And then I go back to some of the things that my doctor said, and I thought it was just over medicating people. But I'm just like, wow, he actually knew what he was talking about. And so now that I'm 32, that was back in like middle school or high school. And I just got reevaluated about it was like 7 hours of testing. And I officially got diagnosed again, probably like 2 or 3 months ago.
You know, it is amazing because that is a story we have heard time and time again. And people like, I mean, it's like you can't make this stuff up. Like what, you have ADHD when you had to get diagnosed 3 times because you forgot that you were diagnosed the first 2 times.
Well, and I have thoughts on that. In the clinical world, I mean, maybe it was really long time ago, and we still have people in the clinical field who believe this is that you outgrow ADHD. And so there's that too. And the expectation drops off the minute you go to college or go into the workforce. We have a phrase that we use here, Patrick, bend the world to meet your needs. And that sounds like exactly what you've done.
Thank you.
You bet. Hey, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we have some more questions from you. And we'll be right back. Support for this podcast comes from our coaching community. Our summer season of coaching and accountability groups is starting soon, beginning on July 13th through September 21st. Get on our interest list and join us for our next summer registration event tomorrow, Wednesday, June 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We also have another registration event on Wednesday, June 21st at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. Do you feel like your life is a jigsaw puzzle, but you're missing the box top? So you don't know what the picture should be. And like half the pieces keep wandering off? Yeah, we get it. We've been there. I've been there. And that's why I've created ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups. Our 10-week award-winning coaching program is designed to help you not just manage your ADHD, but really thrive with ADHD. From building better habits and routines and having our calendars reflect our priorities, to breaking down our tasks and creating actionable to-do lists. Think of it like unlocking the super secret cheat codes to your own brain. But seriously, we get that ADHD is a unique challenge, and it's definitely not cheating to figure out what works to accommodate our brains. Can you imagine a place where losing your keys or forgetting an appointment is actually met with understanding nods instead of judgment? Wouldn't that be a refreshing change? And hey, because we know how ADHD can make staying on track feel like herding cats, our coaching program also includes, you guess it, accountability. Have a hard time activating? Are you prone to avoiding the things on your to-do list, no matter how tough or simple those tasks are? We'll help you with that too. Because when you join ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups, you'll be backed by a group of like-wired brains to help you get started and actually finish the things you set out to do. So if you're ready to embrace your ADHD, manage it like a boss, and join a community that really gets it, then get on our interest list to start your pre-registration process by going to coachingrewired.com. Once you've completed your registration process, don't forget to hit that RSVP button so you can join us tomorrow on Wednesday, June 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and secure your spot to join us this summer. And if tomorrow doesn't work for you, you can join us next week on Wednesday, June 21st at 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. And if you are listening to this more in the future, go to the website to see when the next one is. Because together, we're not just solving puzzles, we're creating masterpieces. Remember, ADHD isn't a flaw to be fixed. You are not broken. It's a unique brain wiring that, well, can be rewired. That's coachingrewired.com. We can't wait to meet you. That's coachingrewired.com. We are back. Kristen has a question on behalf of Quinn. All right, so what is Quinn's question?
Hey, how are you?
Doing great. How you doing?
Fine. Thanks for taking my question. So I'm newly diagnosed with ADHD this past year, and through my like masking and everything, I've managed to move my way up into a pretty big leadership position at the company. My previous lead, we had a really good rapport, and I process externally, so I could talk through things and work through my ideas, and I've really thrived under her leadership. I'm working with someone else now who is very linear, very neurotypical in their approach to everything. And so we're finding a really big disconnect, and I'm just not thriving how I could be. So, what is your advice? How do you work with a leader at work who's very linear, very neurotypical, when your best comes out when you're not?
I just said Lisa. I'm actually kind of curious from Lisa, what would that other side of that? How has that experience been for you? She calls herself our neurotypical resident. And I'm actually really curious what that looks like for you working with all of us people.
So
Go easy now, Lisa.
no, I actually don't know if I'm the best person to answer this question, because for me, it's like I am very much aware of the environment that I'm in. And I know that everyone on the team has, different ways of getting things done. So I know to check in with people differently. And I just have my sort of not list, but like I know if I have to reach out to somebody, how to do it in the best way. But really it's hard because everybody's not as understanding as I am. If that
Well,
like I don't
yeah.
want to sound like
And
that, but I'm very understanding and very aware of, what is happening. So I'm not going to look at it from a very hard one way, like it's my way type of situation.
well, I
But there
think
are
you
people
kind
who
of have answered the
will.
question though by talking about awareness, your awareness
Right.
around the needs. And
Right.
it sounds like that you are doing that for yourself. So I'm wondering if Quinn could help lay that. I know that's toward a boss, so I'm not sure what that relationship is like rapport wise, Quinn. But the idea that kind of the same thing we were saying with Patrick is like, what can you let them know? How much and how succinct can you be with that information for them that helps them know what maybe question they need to ask? Like Lisa is saying that she has developed an awareness around, probably, if I haven't gotten an answer from somebody, it's not because they're ignoring me, it's because they need a nudge. Because she sends me little things that say, nudge. And she's just been really good about that. She went through the program as one of our admins and learned a lot about us and how our brains work. So I was just curious because I feel like that might even enlighten more. Thanks, Lisa.
Laura?
I was just thinking that in this situation, I suspect that I would be feeling a little bit guilty that I was the person who was different here and I wasn't fitting in. And so I think that it's reasonable to keep in mind that people who are inflexible are generally difficult for everyone. And this is not about you. This is as much about them as it is about you. Yeah, we just, as ADHD people, we internalize a lot of guilt and shame about not being able to fit in. And I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this, but I know that I would be feeling blame for this. And keep in mind that this isn't on you.
Thanks, Laura. Brian, any thoughts on this?
I'm pondering, but Lisa has her hand up.
I was just curious because again, this goes back to disclosing in the workplace if your new boss knows about your ADHD.
So, no, but due to a lot of different things, that's not really, there hasn't been an environment creative where I think that would be a positive step. I've tried different strategies like, how can I communicate best with you? What are your expectations for me? Here's how I thrive. Like, I've tried all of those sorts of positive conversations to open up the door. And it's really, there's someone who wants just like bullet point, here it is, interpret what I need on a general, but I have an expectation, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. So you're probably going to miss it. Just those sorts of no-win situations. So it's frustrating because I love my work and want to do well at it.
It sounds like you're really doing everything like right. I mean, it's Lisa?
Sounds like you might need to get like HR or someone else involved, because again, this is your supervisor or higher up or whomever, and they're not giving you the support that you need in order to do your job effectively. And if you've communicated your preferences or things that you need in order to do your job and they're not listening to you, then you have to go to either the neutral third party or whomever is above them.
Brian?
Well, I was just going to follow up. I thought it was really great that you made those overtures. The proactive. This is the way I like to work, and this is so they weren't receptive the first time. But this might just be a thing where it takes a little bit of time to shift their awareness. I'm not telling you to be codependent or to just put up with it, but this is just as way people's minds tend to work. If this is like an ingrained behavior with them, shifting behaviors takes a little bit of time. It might be worth trying a second round of being like, oh, well, we talked about these things in the past and we really haven't gotten there yet. Like make it aware that, maybe it's a second round where you're kind of escalating it and making the urgency more serious to you. And that would probably be a wiser intermediary step before going to HR. And I've worked in corporate environments, so I say like HR is kind of like the nuclear option. Like it's like nobody wants to get a call from HR, so the other party will probably want to feel that you made every effort possible before that happened.
Kristen?
And now having that extra information that you've given with all the overtures and the reaching out, it just occurred to me, what if you created some of your own prompting questions for yourself that become a template so that you're not experiencing overwhelm, you're not creating additional executive function drain, and you're not reinventing the wheel every time you have a similar situation, and devote some time to processing the situation. You talked about being a verbal processor, maybe even, turning on your phone and your notes and recording, hitting the record button, and then going back and listening to it as if it's someone else and saying, okay, so what advice would I give this person who I'm hearing right now? What are some questions where that person themselves can be proactive for their needs? Because, like you said, you love your job, and everyone doesn't want to go to the nuclear option. Like for Brian's, I love that phrase, and that's kind of what I'm thinking of is having a script for yourself for some of those situations that, and there may be some experimentation with figuring out what's the best, different scripts around those things, and what are the best prompting questions for myself.
Quinn, if I can ask, so you did say that you're a verbal processor, right?
Yes, I am.
And have you ever used Chat GPT?
Yes, but not for that purpose. I see where you're going with this.
Now I'm wondering what would happen if you like voice texted or got a transcript of just verbally processing, throwing that into Chat GPT and asking Chat GPT to summarize the main ideas.
That's absolutely brilliant. I love all of the solutions that all of you have given. Because I really have tried everything, even like internal coaching and different working through different people. I've tried everything. So I think those are some more great solutions that I can try. So thank you all very much.
Awesome. We would love to hear back from you next month. So let us know, what you try and how it works for you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much.
You bet. All right. Do we have another question here? Alexis, we have a lot of meta questions today. All right. Alexis has a question. I have autism. Is it true that ADHD drugs tend to not work for autistic patients? Do we have any possible reasons why, if it's true? So I do know that people who are, we call it ADHD. I've been seeing that like more and more on different, online, the ADHD. I remember a couple of years ago sitting through a workshop or seminar at the CHAD conference, and one of the presenters was talking about this. And it is true that people who have both ADHD and autism don't have the same sort of robust positive treatment response as those who just have ADHD or ADHD and without autism. It doesn't mean that like you can't take ADHD meds, right? I know lots of people who have ADHD and autism who take ADHD meds. It can mean that the dosages that will respond well to might be much lower. It might require a lot more trying different things. And but yeah, because the data shows that when we're looking at just ADHD, looking at somewhere between a 70 to 90% positive treatment response, which is really incredible. There are very few types of medications for various disorders that have that high of a positive treatment response. With the stats that I remember seeing, that you're looking at about a 30 to 40% treatment positive response when you have autism as well. That's data might be about 3 or 4 years old. So it's, I don't know if we know why that is. I can speculate and think it's something connected to the central nervous system. But yeah, Kristen?
I am a clinician, but I am not a medical doctor, and I've worked with many psychiatrists. And one of the psychiatrists that I've worked with most closely, I have a a child with severe autism, and what he described for me was the ADHD in her is a symptom of her autism. So basically, going in there and treating it is like trying to treat something at the core, but that's not really the core of the problem. And so it would not work on her. And so I think there's somewhat the idea of not necessarily which came first, the chicken or the egg, but which is the biggest presenter and what's the core place in our brain that is creating these behaviors, because the medicines do work on different parts of the brain and in different ways, just the ADHD type medicines. I think it's just really tricky and we don't really have all the answers.
Kristen, have you found in your experience that your clients who do have both ADHD and autism, in order to tolerate the stimulant medications, often need first like an antidepressant to sort of alleviate some of the anxiety so they can tolerate it?
Most of the and mind you, well, now one's of age, but most of my clients have all been children. So they're often, if they didn't get diagnosed very, very young with autism, then it was an attempt at treating ADHD first. And it was discovered the stimulants weren't working and or it was increasing things. So what then happens is for the ones I've worked with, they've had very, very many behavioral issues and needed antipsychotic meds because of having to grow. It like will level off at some point for a lot of them as they kind of go through puberty and they don't need as much, or maybe they don't even need an antipsychotic anymore. So they're going to treat that first, the psychiatrists are, and they're not going to pile on for people growing. So I don't have a lot of experience with the adult side of things to really, I feel like, give a nice answer to that question. I don't know.
All right. Well, looks like I hope that that was helpful. All right. We're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. Do you have an addiction to the sound of your own voice? Have friends, family members, and even your dog developed a glazed look when you're around? Do your conversations have less back and forth than a broken ping pong game? Well, buckle up, because we've got a solution for you. Welcome to the future of conversational etiquette with Chatmaster 3000, the world's first overtalk alarm. Chatmaster 3000 is no ordinary advice, with multiple ways to get cued, from a simple vibration to a subtle chime, or have it call or text you with the message, "Shush, it's their turn to talk." And it does so with a level of charm that's been scientifically proven to be less irritating than your third consecutive antidote about your former college roommates. Our state-of-the-art product uses advanced vocal recognition and timing technology. It knows exactly when you've crossed the fine line between sharing and monopolizing. It responds with a variety of delightful cues, from a soft chime to a playful buzz, or if you're on a roll, an authoritarian voice that says, "Breathe, human, breathe." But wait, there's more. The Chatmaster 3000 isn't just a beacon of a balance in conversations, it's also a fashion statement. Available in dazzling colors like Sunset Silence, Hushabye Blue, and Gab's Dapper Gold. So wave goodbye to monologues and welcome dialogues with Chatmaster 3000. Order now and we'll throw in a bonus set of conversation starter playing cards. Chatmaster 3000, for when your mouth's writing checks that your social circle can't cash. While this would certainly be helpful if it were real, sadly, it's not. But what is real? The support, connections, and shame-free opportunities for growth through our podcast, coaching groups, adult study hall, which is our virtual co-working body doubling community, and more. Because here at ADHD Rewired, you'll find the support you're looking for with a touch of playfulness and fun. Thanks for listening. Go to ADHDrewired.com for everything ADHD Rewired. All right, we are back. Chris has a question for us. Chris, go ahead.
Well, I have ADHD and I do not take any medicine for it, as well as depression. My system just never reacts well to those medicines. So the last couple of weeks, I've experienced serious fatigue. And I was wondering if, even though it seems like an oxymoron, it's the opposite, but I was wondering if anybody else, if that's a symptom, maybe a sleeper symptom, and what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I think that fatigue can definitely be a symptom of ADHD, especially the inattentive type. It could also be what's sometimes called the other ADHD, or the other ADD, and that's sluggish cognitive tempo. And I just read something yesterday that they're renaming it, and it's a much better name. And now it's like something re-engagement, like cognitive re-engagement, or this. Kristen, have you seen this?
No, I haven't heard about the rename.
So, but the idea is like that sort of slow to activate, slow to sort of engage in the stuff that you need to do. But I would also I would encourage you to go to a doctor and rule out any underlying medical stuff, especially because you said this is a new symptom. Am I understanding that correctly?
It is. And I'm being tossed around the system right now because my primary 2 weeks ago told me that if it persists, to go to the emergency room. And I went to the emergency room and they did a chest x-ray and blood work, and they kicked me out and they said, go see your primary. And I said, well, that's what my primary said. And then I went back to the primary this morning and they were like, well, just go to urgent care. So I'm not giving up. I have a positive attitude about it, but literally it is almost laughable. And quite frankly, they say you're not supposed to self-diagnose yourself. I'm wondering if it's a form of long COVID, because there's a couple similar things, metallic taste in my mouth and extreme sensitivity to Sharpies, like a Sharpie marker. And I remember that when I significantly had COVID. So it's hard for me not to also consider part of it may be ADHD. And since we're here, I just thought I'd throw that in there.
Thank you for your question. And man, that just sounds so frustrating.
I know.
Kristen?
Hi, Chris. I remember you from the last Q&A, and I remember you talking about how you can't take all the ADHD meds, and I'm making connections right now. And that, Eric's share about sometimes taking ADHD meds alone might need an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety to help balance. So I'm curious, now that you're on something else, and I understand you're dealing with that, if that's a conversation you might want to have with your doctor. It occurs to me that I got really excited every time I share my ADHD story, because I'm like, yeah, I was at 44. I got diagnosed. I got prescribed methylphenidate and it works magically. It never occurred to me I'd been on anti-anxiety and anti-depression medicine for over 10 years too. I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
So it's
Maybe
like
there
your
is
body
something.
was the stage that was waiting for the star.
It might, yeah, yes, it might have been. And I kind of wonder for people, because doctors do like to go, most of them, to the ADHD med first. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's some kind of some curious questions to ask, maybe.
Definitely good questions. I guess one of the positive things of where I'm at right now is, and I touched on it last month, I was diagnosed with treatment-resistant depression because I tried antidepressants the first 2.5 months of this year. And literally, just like the 2 other times as an adult, the antidepressants just make me worse. They don't do anything for me. And I want to share this just to give hope to anybody out there, but my psychiatrist recommended Spravato. And it's basically ketamine infusion through the nose. And I'm on week 10 of that. And despite these other little things going on, I have had tremendous positive results from my Spravato treatments.
That's awesome.
But I'll tell you what, I have been able to put together, before this fatigue the last 2 weeks, I was able to put together 3, 4, 5-day stretches of feeling normal. It doesn't make me super happy, but it does not make me, it takes away the severe depression. And let me tell you, I was literally holding my content for joy. I was just floored by it. So it is working for me. It's not a cure, it's a treatment. I'm on the lower dose now, and I'm just very, very hopeful in the future. So if anybody else is struggling with that, the medicine does not work, at least talk to your doctor about it, because it has shown tremendous progress for me. And now I'm just working on these little other things. That's pretty much my summary for today, guys.
That's awesome. Thanks for that update.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts or questions on that? Brian?
Well, I was really just going to chime in with the timeline of the introduction of the Spravato to the fatigue symptoms and to evaluate that. But I'll also follow up on what Chris just said. I'm also a big fan of psychedelic assisted therapy, psilocybin in particular. So there are other options out there besides the pharmaceuticals that are definitely worth looking at.
Absolutely. And I've talked to 3 different psychiatrists there, and none of them feel like the fatigue is tied to it. The fatigue started 2 weeks ago. I've been on I started treatment, my treatment's 5 weeks ago. So very good point, Kristen and Brian. I had been extremely intentional. Actually, I blamed it on the Spravato for like a week, and they literally kept saying, no, Chris, nobody else has ever said this. So everybody's different. Every human body is different. I'm taking it one day at a time and just being intentional about trying to get better.
Kristen, go ahead.
Yeah, one of our alums in our community has shared. She says she has to plan for the fatigue after the treatments, though.
Yes,
So
typically tired. You're not allowed to drive the rest of that day. And traditionally, the day after treatment, I'm tired, but this fatigue is completely different.
okay.
Yes.
I was going to recommend or encourage you to begin documentation, particularly those of us who have CRS that can't remember shit, somewhere in your phone where it's always with you and you take it in and you can just look it up. I don't know if you want to use your calendar or notes or something like that. Yep, because that is a way to get a doctor to listen to you for sure.
Yep.
That's for everyone out there.
I'm documenting like a fiend.
Laura, go ahead.
So I wanted to jump in on the subject. We've had several people today, I believe, talking about how antidepressants haven't worked well for them. And I think, relatively new area of interest for psychiatrists is looking at mood stabilizers instead of antidepressants for treating depression and anxiety, and even antipsychotics in the same category. I'll actually say personally, I ended up doing exactly that. I'm on mood stabilizers instead of antidepressants because SSRIs put me to sleep. I felt terrible. And so I just think it's an area that a lot of psychiatrists are really tentative to go there because it is off-label currently, but it is something to perhaps explore with other providers.
So that's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that you're starting to feel a little bit better. Keep advocating, and oh man, our medical system, it needs some support.
It is so jacked. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the group, Laura.
Thanks, Chris. All right. Haley has a question, and I love this question. This actually might be a wonderful question to end on. Haley's asking if we could recap the good sides of ADHD. And I'm also going to actually invite everyone in the chat to throw your thoughts on this question in there too, because we can read from that. And I want to start it by saying everyone who is here is one of the amazing things about ADHD, because this is when it comes to community, I just think we're kind of an amazing community. We're fun, accepting, quirky, unique, creative. So what else do y'all have?
Staying calm in crisis situations. And because we stay calm, we're able to think and problem solve. At least that's been my experience.
Beautiful.
Biggest one that I can think of off the top of my head was creativity, but then I realized there's something even more important, which is tenacity. We refuse to give up. And I do think that has to do with our brain chemistry. So thank goodness for that, because I don't think any of us would be here specifically without that.
For sure, that persistence. When your life history means that you have fallen down probably more than most people, you start to, almost as a survival mechanism, you start to learn how to adapt and make the best of sometimes not great situations. Another thing for me, so I've learned and continue to learn how I learn because I've had to. I didn't have a choice, basically, because doing it the way everyone else does never worked for me. I'm looking at the chat here. You have adventurous, persistent, thinking outside the box, seeing all sides of the coin, adaptability, flexibility, good in crisis.
You know what? I always felt like when the crisis hit, because I have those similar experiences, it felt like the world sped up to the way I think, the speed of my thinking, because it didn't feel like like my brain feels like all the time. Felt like it caught up. I love that.
Absolutely. Say openness to change, resilience, dedication, self-improvement, compassion for others who think like us and struggle the way we do, remaining calmness, funny and empathetic. I'm curious how many people identify as absurdity as a style of sense of humor that you really like. I love absurdity. I love it, love it, love it. Getting some yeses in the chat there. All right. I think I missed some. We got making unexpected connections, drive and persistence, noticing super specific details. Oh, I relate to that one. And then also not seeing the others, which is humorous to me. Spontaneous humor, just interested in boring shit. Let's see. We don't think in the way most. Let me try that again. We think in most don't understand things. Wait, is my brain just not working, or is there a typo on that?
We think in ways most don't understand. Oh, no, we think in ways most don't and understand things most won't because of how our brains are structured.
Easy, right?
Speaking of structure, that sentence was structured interestingly.
All right. Well, that is, we're going to call this one a wrap. Nice job. Thank you for all of your questions. Laura, Lisa, Kristen, Brian, thank you. Thank you. And I want to remind everyone, we do this once a month, same day and time. We just have the second Tuesday of the month. All right, everyone. Thank you. And that's a wrap.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired, click the button to be a guest at the top of the page, and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tibbers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.